Hi all. Today let's see how we can build and deploy an Angular application using Azure DevOps Pipelines and deploy them into a blob container as a static website. So there are two parts to this task. So one part is the Azure DevOps. It is the place where our code will be residing. It can be a Git version control or any similar version controls. So in this scenario, I have created an organization called Andrew. And here, if you go inside, this is a trial version of the Azure DevOps. And here, there is an option called repos, where we can create multiple repos or repository through this particular option. And here you can provide the type of the repository. So here I have selected the Git repository, and I have already created a repository called JS frameworks. And this is the place in which we will be writing our code, and the same code we will be viewing through the VS Code. So here I have cloned this particular repository and I have placed it here in my local machine. Now the task we are going to do today is that we will be creating Azure Pipelines. So there is an option called Pipelines, which can be used for running the continuous integration and continuous deployment of our Angular application. So as I previously mentioned, we will be building the application using the Azure Pipelines, and we will be deploying them to a blob container. So the blob container and all the related resources we will be creating in a separate website, that is the Azure portal. So here also we need to create an account, and this is the place in which we will be creating the resources like a blob container, the storage account, the resource group, all those things. So I will go into details into each of these. So first let us go ahead and create a pipeline. For creating a pipeline, we need to come to the Azure DevOps and select the option Pipelines. And here we have the new pipeline option. So when we click here, there are two ways in which you can create a Azure pipeline. One is using the classic editor. So if you select the classic editor, you will be able to see a visual representation of your Git repo and all those things, and you will be able to select this, and there will be custom templates which are already built, so you can make use of them to create your own pipeline. But today we will be focusing on another option, that is the YAML based approach for creating pipelines. So this is the YAML based approach. So here you can select one of this option. Since our code is residing in the Azure repo Git, I am selecting this, and here they will be asking for the repository name. So I am selecting the JS frameworks, and now it will show various options, like these are also some pre-defined templates. So here we have an option called Node.js with Angular. So either you can select that. So once you select this, some predefined YAML template will be auto-generated. We can make use of this as a starting point and create the pipeline. So today's demo, what I am going to do is I am going to create my own YAML file, and I will be creating the new pipeline based on that particular YAML file. So for this purpose, first let us go to our source code. So here you can see that the branches on this Git repo are listed here. So by default, there will be a branch called the main or master. So in this case, it is called the main branch. So in order to secure the main branch, so it means like the main branch will be the place where our production ready code will be available. So in order to prevent the developers from directly modifying the main branch, we can set branch policies. So here what I have done is I have selected this option. It means that the developer will not be able to directly check in any code into the main branch, but it has to go through a process in which they need to raise a pull request and a minimum of one reviewer should approve the changes. So here I have selected the allow requesters to approve their own change because this is a demo and I am the only user that is using this repo. And also here we will be able to automatically include the reviewers. So I have added my own ID as a required reviewer. When we go back to the main branch, so since we cannot directly check into the main branch, we need to create a new branch. So here I am going to create a new branch and I am naming it as dev YAML. So I am going to publish the branch. So once the branch is published, when we refresh, you will be able to see the branch. So here I am going to create a YAML file. So I am naming it as the Azure Pipeline MS Windows YAML, and I have added some code into that. Now let me check in this YAML file. So our changes are available in the dev branch. Now we can go ahead and create a new pipeline from this particular branch. So here I am selecting the repo JS frameworks, and here there is an option called existing Azure Pipelines YAML file. So since we are going to make use of the existing YAML file, we can select this option. And since our YAML file is residing in the dev YAML branch, we can select that branch and select the particular YAML file. So once we press on continue, you can see that the YAML file which we created, it is being shown here. Now what we can do is we can save the pipeline. So now effectively a new pipeline has been created. So you won't be able to see it here in the recent, but if we click on the all, you can see that this is our newly created pipeline. So here I am going to rename the pipeline. I am going to rename it as Angular Deploy Win, and I am saving it. Now if you go within the YAML file, you can see some syntax. So YAML is a format which is similar to the JSON. One advantage of YAML is that it is easily human readable. It is most commonly used while creating the DevOps pipelines. So here one thing to note is that you should never use tabs while creating YAML files, since the position of each of this line, the starting position, it is very important, and any change in this particular order, it will result in error. So coming to our pipeline, we can go line by line. So here initially I have given the keyword called trigger, and whenever we see a hyphen like this, it means that the corresponding value for this particular key, that the value for trigger is a list. So I can provide multiple branches or multiple names, like for example the dev YAML branch as well as the main branch. And once you give a branch as a trigger, whenever a check-in happens into this particular branch, this corresponding pipeline will be executed. So that is the significance of the trigger keyword. Now coming to the pool. So before going to pool, we need to go to our project settings, and here there is an option called agent pools. So here we have two options. One is the Azure Pipelines, that is a agent pool, and within that there is a MS, that is Microsoft hosted agent, that is available for us. So since I am making use of the free account, only a single agent will be available for running the pipelines. So through our YAML file, we will be able to select which pool we need to select, like which agent needs to run our pipeline. So here what I have done is, by default our Azure pipelines will be selected. I have not given the pool name, so by default the Azure pipeline will be selected, and since there is only a single agent, this hosted agent will be selected. But we will be able to provide the type of VM image. So in this case, I have specified like Windows latest. So the other options which are available are the Ubuntu latest. So Ubuntu latest is the default value. So here I have a separate YAML file in which I have not specified the pool. So there by default it will be taking the Ubuntu latest and it will be executing the pipeline. Similarly, we can create our own build agents. So if you go back to our agent pools, you can see that there is another agent pool called the default. So here what I have done is I have created my own agent. So we will be able to create our own agent by this process. Like you can create a new agent, then it will give an option to download the files that are required for creating the agent, and we can just extract that content. So it will be something similar to this one. So this particular folder, the agent, this is the self-hosted agent that I have created in my machine. So once this is done and you run the config.cmd, our agent can be set up as a service. So here, as you can see, a service is running here. That is a VSTS agent ungroup, joy default ungroup. So this is a Azure Pipeline agent. Now, whenever we want to make use of this particular agent, we can provide that in the YAML file. So here, for example, in the pool, I have given the name as default, and here I am demanding that the agent name should be equal to ungroup joy. So that particular agent will be selected for running this pipeline. So these are the different options that are available within the pool keyword. Now coming to the workspace. So workspace means basically coming to our self-hosted agent, we will be able to see the internals of our workspace. So here you can see that there is a folder called 1. Within that there are different folders S, A and B. So S is the place where we call our working directory. So whenever we check out our code and try to build our application, this is the folder in which that particular code will be checked out. So before running the pipeline, we are telling the agent to clean the workspace. So there are different options. So here I am giving the all option so that all these files will be cleared. Now coming to the actual steps we are going to execute within the pipeline. So steps is a keyword within which we can provide a list of tasks. So here again the hyphen is there, which means that it is a list. So the first task I am going to do is that we are going to install the Node.js. So for that we can make use of the task called node tool 0, and here we can specify the version of the Node.js we need to install. So I am giving a 16.x, and the display name is in the actual name of the task, which we will be able to see when we run our pipeline. So now since we have created our pipeline, let us try and run it. So for running the pipeline, we can go to the all. Since we have not run it previously, we can select the particular pipeline, and either we can run from here or here. So I am selecting here, and I am selecting the dev YAML branch, and I am going to execute the pipeline. So here you can see that a job has been started, and once we click on that job, you can see that it is making use of the Windows latest image, and the job has been queued to our agent. So now the agent has started executing the pipeline, and here you can see that initially it checks out the code. After that, it installs the Node.js. So in case Node.js is already installed, that is 16.x version is installed in the build machine, it will just fetch it from the cache. So since it is already there, it is telling that it is found the tool in the cache. And finally, we are exiting from the pipeline. So this is a very basic way in which you will be able to run a pipeline. Now let's add some more tasks to this, like building the application, testing, and linting the Angular application. Now I have added some more steps within our YAML file. So let's go through that. So the first task I have added after the Node.js installation is the installing all the packages. So here, as you saw, first the code is actually checked out. So here, if you see, the code is checked out, and as part of the code, there will be our package.json. So inside the package.json, we specify the dependencies for our Angular application. So first, we need to do an npm install so that all these dependencies and dev dependencies get installed within that particular work folder. So here, for doing that, we can make use of the npm1 task, and you can say that the command which needs to be run is installed. So basically it is equal to doing an npm install within the current directory. So once we have installed all the dependencies, the next task we are doing is that we are going to build our Angular application. So here again we are making use of the npm task, but here instead of the command install, we are saying that it is a custom command, which means that any command which we specify within the scripts portion of that package.json, we can execute that by making use of the custom command. So here in this package.json, you can see that for building our application, we can make use of the npm run build. So here I am giving the custom command run build, and I am giving a display name as build Angular app. So after building the application, I am going to run the test for the application, that is the unit test cases. So here again, we have the test step in the scripts. So I am using the npm run test, and after that, we are going to run the lint step, which is also available within the package.json. So now I have checked in the code. So let's run this pipeline one more time. So since our previous pipeline execution is completed, we can see that within the recent. So now we can select that directly and run it from the dev YAML branch. So our steps within our pipeline is getting executed one by one. And now we have completed all our steps. So if we go through the steps, you can see that first the npm install was executed and all the packages on the dependencies were installed. And after that, our Angular application was built and the corresponding files were created. Then the test cases were run, and after that, the lint was also executed. Now we have basically built, tested, and linted our application by making use of the pipeline. Now what we need to do is that we need to store this output. Like basically we need to host this application, that's the dist folder, which is generated from this step, to a blob container. So we need to store this output in some place. So for that, let's see what we need to do. The build output which was generated previously from the build Angular application task, we need to store it within the pipeline. So what we are going to do is that after the build, lint, and test is done, I have added a step or task which is basically a script. So previously you can see that all these were making use of tasks, but here we are actually executing a script within our VM itself. So here initially what we are doing is we have an internal variable called build.artifact staging directory, which basically points to this particular folder, that is the A folder. And here what we are doing is we are going to create a dist folder within this folder A, and after that we are copying the contents of the dist folder, that is the output of the build command. We are going to copy that to within this particular dist folder. So that is the step called copy dist contents. So once we have done that, we make use of the publish build artifacts task. So what it does is basically it will copy the content of this particular the artifact staging directory, and it will publish it to a particular location on the cloud. So let's see that in action. So I have checked in the code. Now let's rerun that pipeline. So here I am going to run that one more time. So the pipeline run has been completed. So now if you go and see, we have the two additional steps here. So one was the copying of the dist folder to the artifact staging directory, and after that we are publishing the artifact. So here you can see that it has been successfully uploaded to a cloud location. So if you go back to the job, here you can see that there is one thing called published. So if you click on that, you can see the artifacts which have been published. So within that, the folder drop, there is a dist folder, and within that, the build output of our application. Now, basically what we need to do is that we need to get this content from the published artifact, and we need to deploy it to our Azure portal. So here what we are going to do is that till now we were simply running our pipeline as a single job. So now we are going to split our pipeline into different stages. So let's see how we can do that. So let's see how we can create multi-stage YAML file. So what we can do is that we can add a keyword called stages, which is again a list within which we can have multiple stages. And here we are defining that the name of our first stage is build, and the remaining things are quite similar. We have the pool and the image, and then within the stages we have something called jobs. So again it is a list within which we can define the different jobs which need to be executed. So here we can specify the name of our job. So in the previous example which we saw already, here you can see that this is actually a default job. So default means basically it's an implicit job which is created even when we don't specify a job or a stage. So here there is only a single stage which is implicit, and within that we have a single job which is again implicit. Now within the job we have the different steps. So here we have added the stages and also created a name for our job. So now let's check in this and run our pipeline one more time. So now you can see that since there is only a single stage, even now the stage is not shown, but the job name, as you can see, it has been changed to whatever we have given within our display name. So we have the Angular app build, and the next steps will be quite similar to what we previously encountered. Now we need to add the second stage so that we can deploy our application to the Azure portal. So now let's go to the Azure portal and see what all things we need to set up before we can deploy our application to the Azure portal. The first thing we need to create is the resource group. So resource group is basically a logical grouping or the grouping of the different resources that will be used by our project. So here we need the blob container. Similarly, we might be making use of some secret keys within our key vault. All those kind of resources will be grouped together based on the resource group. So for creating the resource group, here we have the create option, and we will be able to create a new resource group name. So this is the subscription, that's a free trial I am using now. And similarly, we can select the region in which we need to host it. So here I have already created one resource group. So we will be making use of that. That's a DevOps Azure. So once we have created the resource group, the next thing we need to create is the storage account. So storage account basically consists of the resources like the blob container, tables, queues, and all those kind of things. So for our example today, we need the blob container. So here I have again created a storage account called DevOps Storage Angular. Now within that we have the containers, and here we have a container called $web. So this is the place basically where we will be hosting our build output, that is the output of our Angular application. So here you can see that I have already deployed the application once previously. Now if we go back, here we have an option where we can say that this is a static website. So we have this static website option which I have enabled, and because of that we will be able to get this particular endpoint. So using this endpoint we will be able to access our website. So now you can see that the sample application is here. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and remove this container. I'm going to clear the contents of this. Now when we refresh our application, you can see that there is no content here. Now once we run our pipeline and deploy it, we will be able to see our application. So now let's go to our pipeline. Here we have added a second stage called deploy, which will be deploying our build output to our blob container. So here we have the stage where we gave the name as deploy, and the depends on tells that this stage needs to be started only when the dependent stage, that is build, is completed. So that is this one. And also we can specify the condition that the build should be successful. In case any error happens within the build stage, the deploy stage should not be started. And here again we can specify the pool, and within the jobs we can define the different jobs we need to run. So here you can see that previously we used the keyword job, but here we are making use of the deployment since we are actually running a deployment, and we are giving the display name as deploy to Azure. We can specify an environment which can be linked to this particular pipeline. So the environments can be created within our Azure DevOps. So if you go here, we have the environments option. Here I have created an environment called dev. It is quite easy. You can create, give a name and just select the none option and create. So once you have created that, what happens is that each execution of our pipeline, it will be shown in this particular environment so that we can easily map all the runs of our pipelines. So here I have given the environment as dev, And after that, we can specify the execution strategy for the deployment. So basically we want to run this deployment once, and this is a hook which will be executing the deployment. And within that hook, we will be able to specify the steps which we need to execute. So here we are making use of a task called Azure CLI. Basically what it does is we will be able to perform some actions like uploading content to the blob, all those things through this particular CLI. So here the name I have given as deploy Angular app, and as input for this particular CLI, we need to have a Azure subscription. So let's see how we can create that. So if we go to our ADO, we have the project settings. There we have an option called service connections. So this acts like a connection between our ADO and the Azure portal. So here I have already created one service connection. Now let's try to create one more. So once we click on the new service connection, you need to select the Azure Resource Manager. Select next. Select the service principal automatic. Now it will be loading all our subscriptions. So I am giving the subscription details. Now it will be listing the resource group which we had created previously within our Azure portal. And once we select that, we will be able to give a particular name here, and also we can select the grant access permission to all pipelines so that the pipelines will be able to make use of this service connection. So once we have done that, we can save it and a service connection will be created. So for this sample, I am making use of the existing service connection, that is the Angular deploy connection, which I have given here within the Azure subscription value. Now the next option is the script type, which can be either batch or bash or PowerShell, all those things. So here, since it is a Windows VM, I am making use of the batch. And here we can give the location of the script which needs to be executed. So here we are giving an inline script. So inline script we are giving like this is a Azure CLI command. We are saying the storage blob we are planning to upload in a batch mode, and also we will be overwriting any previously existing files there, and our destination is the $web which we saw earlier here. That's a container, and we need to give the account name. So this is the storage account name. So that is basically this DevOps storage Angular, and we need to also provide the account key which we will be able to see here in the access keys. So you need to get this value and put it here, and also the source you can provide. So basically prior to executing this step, what it does is we had previously uploaded the contents of the build to the artifacts. So that artifact will be automatically downloaded, and it will be downloaded to this particular folder, the build folder. And you can see that in my local machine, it is already there, drop dist and the contents of the dist folder. So basically we are saying this is the source and we need to upload that to within our blob container. So one thing to note is that actually we have hard coded the connection details, like the service connection detail as well as the storage account detail within our pipeline itself. So in order to prevent this, we can make use of something called variable group or variables. Within our ADO, we have a option called library, and within the library we will be able to create variable groups. So basically we can create a given name, and once we save it, we will be able to add variables. So here I have already created a variable group called VGRP dev, and once you click on that, you will be able to see that I have given the Azure subscription, that is the service connection, and the storage account detail within this variable group. So that particular value we will be able to use within our pipeline. So we can replace the actual value with the variable name. And another thing is that here we have the account key. So since this is a very sensitive information, we might not be able to save it within the variable group as well. So for that, what we can do is in variable group, that library, we have an option called we can link the secret keys from the Azure Key Vault. So Azure Key Vault is another resource which is available in Azure portal. So here I have created a key vault. So within this key vault, basically we will be able to store secret keys. So here I have created a secret key called account key, and within that I have stored the account key which is used for connecting the storage account. So once we have created this resource here, we can link that particular resource here using the variable group itself. So here I have a variable group called secret dev, and within that I have given the subscription details and the key vault name. And here this particular key will be automatically downloaded from the Azure Key Vault. So this variable name we will be able to make use within our pipeline. So here we can give the variable account key, and now within the stage we will be able to give the variables, and there are two ways in which we can give variables. So either it can be a normal variable which we define, like you can give key and some value. That is one way. But since in our case we are making use of a variable group, we can give like group and we can give the name of our variable groups. So the first one is VGRP dev, and the next one is secret dev. So we can add these variable groups here so that the variables which are defined within these variable groups, it will be available for this particular stage of our pipeline. So once we have done this, let's check in the code. So we have checked in the code. Now let's try and run our pipeline. So now you can see that there is an error, like the step input Azure subscription, that is which we gave here. So if you see, we had given an actual variable here. So because of that, this particular error is coming. So if we try to make use of a variable as an input, we need to do one additional step so that we will be able to access the value of the variable. So in order to access the variables within the scripts and all, this is fine. But within inputs, we need to link the variable group to our pipeline. So let's go to our pipeline. You can edit the pipeline. Here, select the triggers. After that, select the variables, variable group, link variable group, and here I am selecting the variable group dev. So once it is linked, I will save that. Now let's go to our pipeline and try to run it. So now you can see that the error is gone and our pipeline started running. So now you can see the different stages that we have created. So one is the build stage and other is the deploy stage. So we can open the build stage, and within that we have the Angular app build, which is the job, and within that job we have each of the steps which will be executed. And once the build stage is completed, the deploy stage will be started. So our build step has been completed. Now let's see how the deploy step gets started. So it is saying it needs permission to access to resources. So since we didn't give the permission for the pipeline, it is asking at the runtime. So here I am giving the permission. So this is only a one-time thing. So now our deploy job has started. So here you can see that the secrets are getting downloaded from the keyvault, and the artifact is also downloaded to the folder that is the drop dist. Now we have actually started deploying our Angular application to the blob container. So it's also successful. Now let's check whether our application is up within our blob. So now you can see that our application has been hosted. Now let's create a pull request between this dev YAML branch and the master branch. Now let's add a small change to our application, and let us create a pull request so that we can merge the changes to our master branch. And also we can see whether the pipelines are automatically getting triggered. So here within the title, I am going to add a key called deployed sample app. So that change we are going to push to our branch. Now once we have done that, we can go to the pull request part, and either from the new pull request or create a pull request, we can create the PR. Now here you can see the difference between the two branches. You can see that the reviewer is automatically added. You can approve that, and here we have the pipeline. So once we complete this particular change, the development branch is deleted and the changes are gone into the main branch. So now you can see that all the three pipelines got triggered. So I am going to cancel the other two pipelines. So either you can do that from here or from here. Now only our pipeline is currently executing. So since it is a free account, our agent went into queue. So it will start soon. So because of the change we made, our test case failed. Didn't change the value of the expected value within our test case. So you can see that since a step failed within our build step or build stage, what happened is that the entire job was cancelled, and the next step, that next stage, that's the deploy, it was not even started. So now let's modify the spec as well. So here we can make the change for our unit test, and we can create one more PR. So our pipeline is again going to start. So our build stage is completed, and now the deploy stage is going to start. So the deployment is also completed. Now let's see whether our changes are reflected within the hosted app. So now you can see that the new change is also available within our hosted application. So hope you are able to get a good understanding about how we can integrate CI/CD for an Angular application using Azure DevOps Pipelines. See you soon. Thank you.